Welcome to Therapeutic Intentions Podcast. My name is Stephanie Dingbaum. I am a mental health therapist, and I am so passionate about all things health and wellness, personal development, and empowering others to be their most authentic and best versions of themselves. Here at Therapeutic Intentions, we are all about having intentional and authentic conversations on whole body health, healing practices, mindset, and ways to uplevel your life so you can truly be the best version of you. If you are a woman, a mom, hope to someday be a mom, a healer, or just in a place where you want to start prioritizing yourself and your health, then this podcast is for you. I am so glad you're here. If you're ready, let's get to it. Hello. Stephanie Dingbaum here with Therapeutic Intentions Podcast. I have an exciting collab planned for you guys today. I'm bringing on a dear friend. Her name is Kerri Hays. She's actually from Eastern Iowa, Delco, just like I am. So I'm excited to have somebody on who's from Earlville, Iowa, just like myself. I actually know Kerri because she went to school with my sister and just always knew her. Actually, back in the day, like my sister's senior year of high school, I remember my sister bringing home like all her senior pictures, and I was always like, Kerri's senior pictures just like really called to me. It was like very much like this hippie vibe and like the bright neon colors, and I was like, this girl's awesome. So anyways, just kind of always admired her. But I'm bringing her on today to talk about all things brain health. Kerri is going to be sharing her personal experience, her personal story about brain health. And I really hope this is a healing episode for listeners. I feel it'll probably be very healing for Kerri, but I hope the listeners also get that same vibe from it as well. I know it can be really hard to share stories like this. It's just a very vulnerable topic to talk about, but we need more people to be talking about it. And so I'm really appreciative that Kerri is coming on today, that she's willing to share her story. And I just hope that all of you listeners just get a lot out of this. I have no doubt that you will. So Kerri, why don't you do a brief introduction for yourself?
Sure. Well, hello, everyone. I am honored and a little nervous and excited to be a voice for brain health today. As Stephanie mentioned, I grew up in rural Iowa, so diving right into it, brain health was not something that your average rural farmer would talk about. Yeah. So I'm a 39-year-old normal woman. I'm a mother to 2 healthy, beautiful children. I am happily married in a healthy, supportive marriage. And I live in Des Moines. And I am kind of just living life by letting it unfold by the stages and chapters of my life right now. So I am someone who has experienced depression and anxiety episodes several times in my life. And I am here to be a positive, vulnerable voice as a normal, healthy, intelligent, hardworking woman that has brain health struggles, and here to give a voice to it.
Kerri, I so appreciate how you worded that. Like, it in today's world, brain health is not something, I mean, it impacts everyone. And I like how you really brought it down to like normalizing it. Like, you can't look at someone on the street and guess whether they struggle with a diagnosis of some kind, right? And you're just here to like shed light on like, we all experience it. I might look normal from the outside, but I've experienced it. So I really like how you worded that, because you're right. Like, I never would have guessed until you came out with your story that this was something you struggled with, because again, it's like one of those invisible diseases. We don't know from the outside looking in that somebody's struggling day to day with depression or anxiety or whatever it might be. So I appreciate how you shared that. That's perfect.
Yes. And in my own healing journey, I like to use the word navigate instead of struggle, because if I say I struggle with depression and anxiety, it kind of gives the depression and anxiety power, because
and it's a negative word.
Yes. So I navigate, I have to navigate anxiety and depression in stages of my life. So, I graduated high school. I graduated college. I wouldn't say I have or had any huge traumatic events in my life that triggered any sort of anxiety and depression. I had no exposure to it myself personally, or in my family, or really in my community or friend circle up until 2019. And in 2019, I was a mom of one child at that time, and I really got lost in motherhood. So there are several things that I think brought the chemical imbalance on. Not that anything can cause depression, because you can be doing all the right things and still deal with depression. But there are stressors and factors in your life that can contribute to having a depressive episode. So a couple things for me. I was trying to get pregnant, and I was obsessed in an unhealthy way of trying to get pregnant. I had the thinking error that I would not be able to be happy unless I had another child, unless I was pregnant. That was my reality at the time, and it was an unhealthy expectation that I had put on myself. I also had gotten a bit lost in motherhood in terms of forgetting who I was outside of the root of being a mother. And also I was doing some hormonal therapy to try to get pregnant, and that really flipped my hormones. So those three contributing factors, to make a story short, I didn't know at the time that I was having anxiety and depression symptoms. I remember waking up every morning and feeling sick to my stomach, to the point of I got blood work done to see if something was wrong, because I felt sick every morning. I felt like my body was heavy all the time. I was so weepy. I was fixated on becoming pregnant, and my reality was skewed in telling myself I would not be happy unless I was pregnant. So I had symptoms of anxiety and depression, but I had no education myself that I was experiencing these symptoms. And I also had no one in my life that said, Kerri, I hear these struggles, and I wonder if you're experiencing some anxiety or depression symptoms. I would encourage you to have a professional appointment to get kind of an assessment.
So nobody said that to you?
No, that is what was lacking in my life. And I also didn't have the education myself on the symptoms.
Had anybody ever even brought up postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression from your firstborn? Was that ever even brought up?
No, and I don't think it was that. I don't think
Okay. I didn't know if there was a connection. Okay.
No, because my son was 3 at the time.
Sure.
But anyway, weeks went on, and I felt worse and worse. And I remember I was actually at my mom and dad's house on Lake Delhi, and I started to have the thought that I was such a mess. Everyone in my life is going to give up on me. It's unfair to them to be connected to me because I am such a mess. I think they deserve better than me, and they would be better off without me.
Wow.
When those thoughts entered my brain, they freaked me out, and I was like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
So that morning, I woke up, I laid in bed, and I rolled over, and I told my husband, Tyler, I said, Tyler, I need for you to hear the words that are in my head. And I said them out loud. And then I told my dad, and my dad started sobbing right away and was like, no, Kerri, no. So what did I say next? I said, I want help today. Those words were kind of the scariest, biggest, bravest words I have ever said. What the hell that meant for me that day, I had no idea. Yeah, so what ended up happening, because again, there was no education in rural Iowa about, okay, this girl is almost in crisis mode. She is having intense anxiety and depression and having invasive thoughts and has no idea where to go to, but she is ready for help.
Right.
So what I ended up doing was we drove back to Des Moines. Forrest stayed with my mom and dad. And I literally, on a Sunday morning, walked into the emergency room, and I said to the front desk person, I need to talk to someone about anxiety and depression. And do you know what they said to me? They said, well, there's no doctors here on Sunday. I don't know what you want me to do.
Wow.
And I looked at her and I said, I understand that. I need to talk to someone about anxiety and depression today. And they walked me to the back. They did the ridiculous scale, take your height, blah, blah, blah. And the whole rest of the day from there was kind of a fog. But long story short, there was a woman that eventually came in like this waiting triage room, asked me a series of questions, and I told her, like, this is how I'm feeling. I feel numb. I feel fog. My body feels heavy. I'm so weepy. I'm starting to have scary, invasive thoughts. And the question that she had for me is, do you want to go home because it's Sunday and try to get someone to talk to tomorrow, or do you want to stay overnight tonight in the hospital to make sure you're safe? Mm-hmm. Again, I did not know what that meant. So I said, I will stay for Forrest.
Yeah.
What that meant, which I didn't realize, was I was admitted myself to the mental health inpatient program at the hospital that I went to. What that meant was I was there for 4 nights. No one could stay with me. I had a roommate, and I had to go through a series of sessions throughout each day that were stemmed around anxiety and depression. And the point of the inpatient process was to see the doctor, tell the doctor my symptoms, and get started on a brain health medication, which was Lexapro at the time. So now that I look back, I have had a second episode this summer that my Lexapro had me even keel, great. I had like so many solid years of no episodes, and then all of a sudden, wham, bam, boom, here it is again. When you are dealing with brain health medications, they can kind of fizzle out, or you can outgrow them, which I didn't know. I like to say I out-healed it, right? Mm-hmm. So I out-healed it. And I needed a new medication. So I actually had to switch psychiatrists because I didn't like what my current psychiatrist was telling me to do. And she got me started on a new medication called Wellbutrin. Mm-hmm. And I am about 4 weeks into the new medication, and I am feeling back to base. Hallelujah. Thank you for modern day medication. Let a 39 healthy, vibrant, fun, intelligent woman shout from the rooftops, I am on anxiety and depression medication, and I don't give a shit who knows.
Good for you.
Because I feel good.
Yes,
and
you deserve that.
And there's no shame in it. This is what I want people to hear. And because I have been so vulnerable with my story, after I shared my first story from being an inpatient, I bet I have had 10 people privately reach out to me with the same symptoms and said, Kerri, I am experiencing this. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
We have got to fix that. We have got to give voice to brain health so that people are educated to know what symptoms to watch for, and people are educated on what help is in place and what to do.
Yeah, I agree. And, it seems like a lot of the push with brain health is like, we need to spread brain health awareness, and there needs to be more awareness. And while I think that's all great and grand, I actually think like there's a lot more awareness. I think the actual word that we need to be using is brain health education, which is what you just said. It's like, I think people are aware that it's a thing now. Now we need the awareness to turn into actual education. I just feel like people are more aware now. I mean, Delaware County in itself, like there's been so much more growth in that area since like you and I were in grade school and high school and whatnot. But I do truly feel like, the education about it is what needs to be pushed more than just basic awareness.
Absolutely. Because if I would have been educated, if someone in my circle would have been educated in 2019, I would not have ended up an inpatient. Because guess what? My symptoms this summer were the same. It was hard. But I had developed the tools and the resources and the education that I was able to get through it. And I didn't even think about the fact that I needed to go to the hospital. I didn't this time.
Sure. But you didn't feel safe with your own thoughts, right? I mean, like, in that instance, when you don't feel safe, like, that's where else do you go?
Right. So you may ask, okay, so what does education look like? Education can start with people who have anxiety or depression episodes being verbal about it and not having shame. So I shared what some of my symptoms were. And if anyone is listening to this and thinking, oh my gosh, am I experiencing some anxiety and depression? What I would say to you is you don't have to know. If you are wondering or worried about it, get yourself an appointment with a psychiatrist, not your general practitioner, and ask them for a brain health assessment. They are the professionals that will know and will be able to point out, here's what I'm hearing, here's what I'm seeing, and here's what I recommend. Do not put that burden on yourself to know. And also, if you are experiencing symptoms or are someone who is on medication, tell your care team and educate them about it. My care team, which is the people that were up close, safe, and personal to me in the hardest moments, were my husband, two of my best friends, my 8-year-old son, and my dad. My dad and my husband visited me every night in the hospital. I had to educate them on what depression was and what depression felt like to me in my body. What I did for that is I said, Tyler, I need for you to know these words are very dangerous and are red flag words for me to hear. Please do not say them. Please do not talk about them. They are hurtful. These are the words or phrases I need to hear. So they're going to be different for every person. But for me, they were, I see you are trying so hard. This is temporary. We are going to get through this together. I am not leaving. You are not alone. Those phrases can be different for every person, but hear me out. If you are a person that has a partner who is struggling with a brain illness and you are not being transparent with your partner, you cannot expect them to support you in it. My husband has come with me to 90% of my psychiatry appointments because I need for him to hear the language. I need for him to hear the questions and the answers, and he needs to be as educated as myself if he is my main supporter. And I remember my dad making a comment, Dad, I'm not calling you out, but this is the education that needs to happen. Through my dad witnessing my own brain health struggles, my dad has learned so much because he's been brave enough to be a part of them. And my dad said, I seriously thought people that were depressed were just lazy and just laid on.
There is that stigma. There is that stigma with our parents' generation. I do feel that they don't completely understand it unless they've actually gone through it themselves. I don't feel they completely get it.
Right. And you can't expect someone who hasn't witnessed it to truly get it, but you can educate them so that they can at least be empathetic towards it.
Absolutely.
So, to respond to that, being depressed is not being sad. Being depressed for me was feeling an emptiness of all emotions, which in turn makes you feel sad. Because you feel nothing. You don't feel
we're not robots.
You don't feel joy. You just feel empty and numb. And another thing that I would like to cheerlead people to do, which I have learned over the years, is you have to be brave enough to ask for help, but also you are responsible for equipping your own tool belt. So medication can only do so much. But if the rest of your life is a shit show and you are carrying around decades of trauma or hurt or grief that you're not dealing with, medication can only do so much.
Absolutely.
Let's talk
it's
about
just
what
another
you do.
tool just like anything else.
Yes. And Stephanie, thank you for what you do in your job. It makes a difference. I am such an advocate of talk therapy. It has saved me. But
Absolutely.
talk therapy
but it's another tool.
It's a tool. And guess what? You can't just go to an hour therapy session and then pat yourself on the back and say, yay, I did it. It's over. Therapy is work. And if you're not showing up being vulnerable, and if you're not taking notes, and if you're not going home and between therapy sessions doing hard work and homework, you're not going to get anything out of your therapy.
Have you ever taken a medication that didn't come with a side effect or two? Yeah, me neither. In year 2 of my fertility journey, I got fed up with the medications that were being recommended for me because they all seemed to come with their fair share of side effects on both my physical and mental health. I then decided to take my health into my own hands, and I set up an intake with an integrative health practitioner. I wanted someone who could help me get to the underlying root cause of everything. I refused to accept the diagnosis of infertility because I knew there was something more going on than what the Western medicine practitioners were catching. Switching my healthcare to the integrative health world was actually the best decision I ever made in the 6 years that we've been going through our own fertility journey. I finally felt I had more control over my health choices, and I felt like I was actually being listened to and heard more. The integrative health world then opened my eyes to Earthly Wellness, which is a company that believes individuals should be empowered to make their own informed health choices. Earthly Wellness is such an amazing company in my mind. They produce herbal remedies and body care products that support health naturally. This meant finally no side effects. Products with actual clean, non-toxic ingredients that won't harm my body or cause other symptoms to flare up. Products that have ingredients in them that I actually recognize and I can pronounce too. At first, I just tried their Good Night Lotion and Immune Aid vitamin C capsules. Then I eventually got into using 1 or 2 of their tinctures that they offer as well. I have had a good experience with literally every single product that I've ever tried from Earthly. They make me feel great, and they've been extremely beneficial for me through this fertility journey. I'm not the only person that speaks highly of Earthly either. Listen to these testimonials from other individuals who have seen success from using Earthly's products. One says, "My sleep has improved a ton since using the gut health oil from Earthly. I started using it at the beginning of April, and almost 2 months later, my sleep has sustained." Another one says, "My menstrual cycle has been off for years, and the only supplement I've added has been the gut health oil. And since starting that, my menstrual cycle has been more regular." Amazing testimonies, you guys. If you're looking for a natural, non-toxic product that can benefit both your physical and your mental health, look no further, because Earthly is a trusted company that can truly support your health needs. Earthly has a variety of products for all ages as well. Besides body care products and herbal remedies, they also carry vitamins, minerals, cleaning products, baby products, and skincare products. It's truly a one-stop shop. So, if you're looking for clean and safe products to use around the home, on yourself, as well as for your kids, go to the link in my show notes and see what Earthly has to offer. I wouldn't be recommending a company that I myself didn't strongly support and believe in personally. Another great benefit about Earthly is their prices are affordable as well. People often complain that the downside of seeing an integrative health practitioner is that you have to pay for those services out of pocket. My pushback to that is you could be spending that money on Western medicine procedures, medication, more medication to fix the side effects from the initial medication, doctor's visits, etc. You have to look at your health like it's an investment. And all of these things are a part of that investment. So you're spending less in the long run, really. Another amazing benefit of ordering through Earthly is that all of their products are completely clean and non-toxic, which means they have absolutely no parabens, no phthalates, no fragrance, no preservatives, no allergens such as corn, soy, gluten, dairy, or nuts. No junk at all, you guys. And if you are like me and you're trying to rid your home of toxic products, then Earthly is your go-to place to shop. In today's world, our society normalizes living with certain symptoms, and I just think it's ridiculous. It does not have to be normal to deal with overactive thyroids. It doesn't have to be normal to deal with unbalanced hormones. It doesn't have to be normal to have heavy and painful periods. It doesn't have to be normal to deal with daily bloating. These are all symptoms, and there is an underlying root cause to all of it. Earthly has products to support not only those symptoms, but also the root cause of it all. Be honest, wouldn't you love to kick one or two symptoms that you deal with daily? As a mental health therapist in a small rural county in eastern Iowa, I recommend Earthly products constantly to clients. I always suggest trying something holistic before using medication or something that the body can become addicted to. That way you don't have to worry about experiencing any side effects as a result of using that product. If what you're hearing resonates with you and you want to try out an Earthly product for yourself, go into my show notes for today's podcast episode. I will have my affiliate marketing link in the notes for you. Also, for a limited time, if you're a first-time user of Earthly products, you can get a discount using code, all caps, Choose Natural to get a 10% discount off your order. Again, the code is Choose Natural in all caps. If you are a returning customer of Earthly's and you would also like a discount, I'm offering for a limited time only the code COMEBACK to also get a 10% discount off your order. Again, that code in all caps is COMEBACK, COMEBACK. Improve your sleep today, you guys, and feel better mentally, physically, and emotionally. Seriously, consider making Earthly Wellness a part of your health journey today. All links will be in my show notes for today's episode.
I love that. It's so funny you say that because the clients that come like with notebook in hand, a pen ready to write, I'm like, all right, you know what you're doing. Like, this is great because that's how I always showed up to therapy. And I'm like, okay, I love when people are ready. Like, I had a client who had never done therapy before, and she like asked for my permission. Like, can I bring a notebook and a pen? Like, can I write while we talk? And I'm like, yeah, you don't need my permission though. Like, it's so funny that people, that's another thing. Like, they're not even educated on the therapy piece of it. Like, what's okay, what's standard, what's not okay, what's the expectations. Like, people just in rural parts of the country, especially, I feel they just don't know that stuff,
Right. And to also break the stigma around therapy, you don't have to be in the most stressful season of your entire life to warrant you going to therapy.
No.
I have gone through seasons where I have gone to therapy every week, every 2 weeks, once a month, every 3 months, and then seasonally. And I bet you if you schedule yourself a therapy session once a month and you show up with your vulnerable, authentic self and talk about what is taking up most brain space for you that month, you're going to get some work done.
Yeah. Oh, I love what you're saying. I totally agree. Complete transparency. I've been to therapy for 10 years and I hope I have some clients listening to this, but I tell my clients, like, I'm very transparent with them about, like, listen, I've suffered from anxiety too. I've overcome anxiety. I get it. Like, I've been where you're at. I've been in your seat before. I know how hard and vulnerable it is showing up for the first therapy session, scared, like, what is she going to think of me? Is she going to judge me? What do I say? What do I not say? Like, I get it. I think that's powerful when I, as a practitioner, can say that. But what I love about what you are saying is, like, let's normalize going to therapy, first of all. And also a part of that is, like, yeah, you don't have to be in crisis to start going to therapy. You don't have to be the most stressed you've ever been to start going to therapy. I mean, like you, there's been times where I went weekly. There's times when I went bi-weekly, but I got to a point where I was just going monthly. But I mean, complete transparency, I freaking loved those weeks and those days when I had therapy. It was the best day ever. I mean, one, it's a mental health day, but two, like, that 1 hour for me, and like you, like, I always showed up with notebook in hand, pen in hand, like, I took notes, like what homework the therapist wanted me to do between sessions, things like that. But it just feels so good after that hour to talk to somebody who is just completely separate from your inner circle who has that outside knowledge, who has the expertise to help you through whatever it is you're needing support on. I mean, I think, like you said, that is a tool just like meds, just like deep breathing, just like other coping skills. It's a tool. But if you take that seriously as a tool, that in conjunction with the other tools you have can be so transformational. And I mean, obviously, you know that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I've learned from my therapist, which I just find hilarious because this is like opposite end of my personality spectrum. I show up to therapy and my therapist laughs because she's like, there's no small talk. I literally like sit down and I'm like, all right, here's the two things I need to talk about today. So if we could like cut the session in half, and we're like gearing up. I'm like, I'm not paying for small talk. I got other people I can do small talk with for free. And my therapist laughs and she's like, Kerri, you wouldn't believe the number of clients that come in, and we literally have like 7 sessions of small talk before we get anywhere. And I understand there is a place for establishing safety, especially for
rapport
people. There's a place for that. But why I'm sharing this is to tell you, you are driving the boat of your therapy session, you guys.
Preach, Kerri.
Your therapist is not a fortune teller.
Yeah.
They read your brain. So you can do some work ahead of time and show up and be like, okay, here's what I want to focus on today. If you don't, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. It's so good to hear this from somebody. I feel like I say this to clients all the time, and I always try to make a point in saying it in my intakes even about like, I will always have something in my back pocket prepared for the session in case you come and sit down and you're like, I got nothing, which you would not believe the amount of times that is the case though. Like you're paying for this service, like you're paying me. So you run the bus here. Like it should not be the other way around. Like I will always have a direction I feel we need to go in case you're not prepared for today's session. But it is interesting. That is not something that I've ever talked to somebody about besides like other practitioners like myself. But it's so funny you bring that up because if more people understood that 1 hour would be so much more productive, I feel.
Right. And I think that is a societal Band-Aid that we wear is that, how are you? I'm fine. I'm good. Okay. When you're in therapy, you're going to take off your Band-Aid and you're going to spill out the things that aren't good in your life. Okay.
Yep.
And for some people, that is so freaking hard to do. But you're not going to heal your stuff if you aren't brave enough and vulnerable enough to kind of pop your I'm fine bubble and deal with your stuff. Right.
And fine isn't great. Like, I like that you said that I'm fine bubble. Like, you know, people will say like, I'm fine, I don't need therapy. But fine isn't great. Like, don't you want to feel great? Don't you want to say that you feel great every day and not like, oh, I'm fine. Fine is not a feeling, you know? And I will say, it's funny also, like you saying, like, I don't need to come here to do small talk because, I got people in my circle for that. I feel very similarly as a therapist for, like, people that when I ask in my intake, like, what are your expectations for therapy? I've had just a select few, not a ton, but, like, a select few will say, like, I just really, like, need a place to vent. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, you want to pay $150 just to vent to me? Like, you don't have anyone in your inner circle you can vent to? Like, I guess I have high expectations because of my experience in therapy and as a therapist that I'm like, no, what you should really want is like, I want to dig deep because that's where I struggle. Like as a practitioner, I so badly want to immediately like dig into the trauma, dig into the underlying root cause. Like, let's figure out what this is, you know? And I have to constantly like pull myself back and remind myself, like with new clients, for instance, that, okay, like you have to build the rapport first. So Stephanie, like not everyone wants you to immediately dig into their trauma. And it's, you know what I mean? But for you, it's like, I'm not wasting time. Let's go, you know? And it's just funny because not everybody is like that. So
I would be really the same way if I was a therapist. Because
I bet you would.
Personality, you know, I take after both my mom and my dad. Where if I do something, I'm all in. I'm
right?
not good at like tiptoeing into something. So that shows up in different areas of my life, I guess. But
So I'm curious. So you went to therapy. Was it just talk therapy initially? Was it EMDR? Like, did you go to a specific, like for a specific modality of therapy, or just curious?
I had no experience with talk therapy until my anxiety and depression episode started.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
there again, if I would have had that tool in my tool belt, I could have been more proactive. And
Sure.
I heard you say therapy is not for crisis mode. Amen. When you are in crisis mode, do you need therapy? Yes. But therapy is so you don't get to crisis mode.
Right. Right. Like, don't wait to be in that mode to be like, oh, I should probably get in therapy. Like,
No.
do it. The best thing you can honestly do for yourself is just proactively get into therapy. I mean,
Right.
I still like, I took a break from therapy when I started my business because it was kind of like money was tight and, just getting the business up and running. Like, that was one thing I just cut for the temporary time being. And now I'm getting back into it. And I mean, I just feel like, even though I don't feel I need it, like, I'm being proactive. I mean, we're going through the fertility journey. You don't know, like, Christmas may hit and I may be just a complete, like, sobbing mess for the month, So, like, you don't have to wait for times to get hard to go to therapy. I honestly wish more people would do themselves a favor and just go proactively in case they need that tool,
Right. Right. Even a seasonal check-in.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And I also want to give voice to the fact that finding the right therapist is a process. So I feel I have so many people that say, I tried therapy. It didn't really do anything for me. So I don't really think it's for me. In most cases, what that means to me is that, like, okay, either you weren't vulnerable and you didn't open up enough, or you didn't give it time, or you didn't find the right fit. I am actually in the process right now of, like, shopping for a new therapist, which is like, okay, first I was on a waiting list, and then you got to do like the intake stuff, and then you got to meet and, like, do, probably 2 or 3 sessions minimum to see if you're going to jive. So it is a process.
It is a process. And I will say, and this is great that you bring this up too, I tell all my clients in my intakes that I start my intake out with complete transparency by saying, listen, I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea. So what I do about that is I ask that you at least give me 3 sessions, because research shows that it takes about 3 to 5 sessions to build a solid therapeutic relationship. So I ask them to at least give me 3 sessions. But in that 3rd session, we will do an informal check-in where I will ask you, Kerri, do you feel like relationship-wise this is a good fit for you? Relationship-wise, personality-wise, are we a good fit? And if the answer is no, great, no hard feelings, because you don't jive with every single practitioner that you get paired with. So that's okay. Let's look at what is it that you are looking for. Let me get, like, I have a whole list of, in one of my tabs, I have a whole list of therapists in the surrounding county area. Like, we'll go through that list. We'll narrow it down to, like, who might be a better fit for you. Do you want virtual, in person? I mean, we'll have that conversation. And then I always say it goes both ways. If I don't feel like I'm a good fit for you, I'm going to come out and tell you that too. It doesn't mean you have to switch, but it just might mean progress might not happen at the pace you're expecting, because I just feel like we don't jive. And it's okay to have that conversation. I also think people don't understand or aren't educated to know that you can shop around for a therapist. Most, if not all, therapists will offer free 15-minute consultations. I feel in 15 minutes, I mean, not everybody feels this way. I feel I get a pretty good first impression of somebody based on a good, like, 15, 20-minute phone call. So it's okay to ask, even, like, if you don't feel like 15 minutes is enough, you could ask, like, can I have a half-hour consultation with you to see if you'd be a good fit for me? It's not going to hurt to ask. And then I did that in the beginning. Like, I shopped around. I met with 3 different therapists to find one that I felt was a good fit for me. And I don't think people know that you can do that.
Absolutely. And I also want to just reiterate that you're never too young or too old to go to therapy.
Yes. Yeah.
And I also want to bring to the surface that therapy is a privileged thing. I have money to be able to pay someone to help me in my healing, and not everyone may not have that privilege. And what I want to say to those people who maybe aren't in a financial situation to make that happen is there are therapists in the metro that I know invite interns or people who need to get their hours in before their certification is complete that offer free therapy. And guess what? Since the pandemic, virtual therapy is a big thing.
Yeah.
So you could live in Delaware County, you could live in Earlville, Iowa, you could live in anywhere and have a virtual appointment with someone in Des Moines that is offering free sessions. And tell yourself, this isn't a forever thing, but it's something for now. Yeah. Because it is a privilege, and I understand that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, because there are, and I can do some research and put it in the show notes, but there are some websites for people who maybe like their insurance doesn't cover mental health or behavioral health sessions. There are some websites that will support people, like underprivileged people, so that they can get counseling or therapy. And if that therapist is not, either one, doesn't accept your insurance or is not in network for you or for your insurance company, this this company will help like cover the costs or so. I'll put some information in the show notes. It's been a while since I've talked about that, and I can't remember the name of it, but that could be a good tool for people. So
yes. Absolutely. And also, do you want to share the 988 option that you leave in your phone?
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. I always talk about that in my intakes as well. So, I always tell clients, like, I want to be the first to be notified if you are ever in a mental health crisis, which before even getting into the 988, like in general, a mental health crisis, I want to say, looks and feels different for everybody. So what a mental health crisis looks like for Kerri might not be what a mental health crisis looks like for me, because it is just dependent on obviously our mental health, our symptoms that we experience, our triggers, circumstances, environmental, everything. And so just know that it's personal to you. A mental health crisis is personal to you and your life. And there's no like cookie cutter what a mental health crisis looks like. Okay. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, and I don't just mean suicidal thoughts, because that is not the only mental health crisis. A mental health crisis could be just like you're having those unsafe thoughts and you've never experienced them before. And like what Kerri shared, like, I just don't know what to do with this. I don't have a plan to hurt myself or anything, but I just have never been in this place before, and I'm a little scared and freaked out. That's a mental health crisis. Or it could be you're in that pit of depression. You're not having unsafe thoughts, but you're just in this pit and you don't know how to get out of it. And you don't feel like anyone in your life gets it. Like, that could be a mental health crisis. Or maybe you're suffering from anxiety and those intrusive thoughts are just getting the best of you. And like, again, you're not having the unsafe thoughts, but you're just not able to control these thoughts and it's driving you crazy. Sorry, I don't like that word. It's really like taking control of your life. And so those are all examples of mental health crises. Regardless of what it looks like for you, 988 is a good hotline, is a good resource, just another tool in your toolbox that you can access during those times. And the good thing about it is it's trained counselors, trained therapists, just like myself, on that line. It's confidential. I've had friends that have volunteered on that line or have worked for that service, and it's just a really quality service. And I always tell clients in my intakes that, when Kerri, when you and I were kids and a teacher would ask us that question of like, what do you do when there's an emergency? We always knew, like the back of your hand, you knew the answer was call 911. Like, we didn't even have to think about it. Well, the big push in today's world, especially with therapists and counselors, is we want today's youth to know if a teacher or somebody were to ask a youth or a student, what do you do when you're in a mental health crisis? We want them to not even have to think twice, say, call 988. That needs to become a new norm. You call 911 for a physical health crisis and you call 988 for a mental health crisis. And they are both very similar. And so, like I said, if you're ever in a place mentally where you're just struggling, you've never been there before, maybe it's suicidal thoughts, maybe it's not, that 988 hotline is a great hotline to utilize any any day of the week, any time of the day. It's available. It's confidential, and it truly does have great quality counselors on that line, and we're lucky to have it. So definitely access it if you feel you need to. Nobody even has to know that you call, okay? Unless you tell people, nobody's going to know, which is great, a great resource.
Yeah, and this is where the being brave and vulnerable comes in. And like I said, the people that privately reached out to me because they didn't know what to do. They were brave enough to admit and to recognize something was going on. And then they were kind of in this like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
So maybe you reach out to someone who knows what you're going through, who has experience. Reach out to a safe person that can make some calls for you. Pick up the phone and call your general practitioner and say, I am having some intense brain health symptoms. Can you refer me to a psychiatrist that can do a brain health assessment for me? Because like I said before, when you're in that space, everything feels black and white and everything feels overwhelming, and you don't need to put that burden on yourself to figure it out or to know.
Right.
You just have to be brave enough to show up and let a professional kind of take the rope and help guide you so you can get out of it.
Yeah. I do want to ask you, Kerri, like, you know, I feel like meds is such a like controversial topic these days with mental health medication in general. And I always try and ask people about their opinions in my intakes. And I know people have varying opinions on it. Like, I like what you said earlier, like it's a tool and it's just like any other tool. You can't solely rely on meds because they're not like a fix all, but they are a tool to use in conjunction with other tools. But I'm curious specifically for you, when you first met with a psychiatrist, did you feel like you were educated on your med options? Did you feel like you like had a good understanding when you left that appointment of like the meds you were on, how they were potentially going to impact you? Like, did you feel educated on that?
When I was an inpatient in the hospital, I would say no, because I had no brain capacity to even ask or worry.
Oh, okay.
When I was in that space of crisis mode, I was just like opening my hands and reaching for someone to give me something that would help. So by the time I actually saw the doctor and he was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to diagnose you with severe anxiety and depression episode or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to put you on Lexapro. And I was like, hallelujah, give me the freaking pill. You know, like I didn't have the brain capacity to worry. I didn't need any more worries. I just needed to trust in that stage of my life. But in this last episode, like I said, I needed another medication on top of Lexapro or instead of Lexapro. And I got started on something with my current psychiatrist, and my anxiety was still through the roof like a month in. So I, had another appointment with him and he said to double it. And my intuition was like, this is not right.
Wow.
So I didn't really have any rapport with my current med provider at that time. And that wasn't that big of a deal because, like I said, I was so stable for so long. But then when I really needed a reevaluation, I needed someone who I had rapport and extreme trust with. So I switched psychiatrists. And she got me started on something else. And then I did have the brain capacity to ask all the questions. How is this different than the last medication? Why this and not that? What are the side effects? What do you think my long-term care plan is going to look like? And again, I was able to have that capacity because of the tools that I now have in my tool belt. It's also important to, and I don't say this to scare anyone, because I have been in the weeds where my biggest fear is I'm going to deal with depression my whole life, and there's not going to be a medication that's going to be able to help me. That's what my anxiety tells me when I am in the thick of it. I now know, my therapist has taught me how to catch, name, and redirect my anxiety and depression thoughts. So I now know when that thought comes into my brain of, oh, Kerri, you're going to be depressed all your life and there's not going to be a medicine to help you, I say, hi, anxiety. I don't need you right now because I'm safe. So take a back seat.
Love it. Love that.
But, there are so many medications and modalities out there. And every year, the research and the support is getting better and better.
I agree.
So even if 1-2 medications didn't work out with you, do not give up. Do not lose hope in medication. You have to be committed to your med plan. You have to continue with therapy. You have to have the tools in your tool belt, but do not just give up on medication. And to answer your question, I am all about natural modalities for healing.
Sure.
If that is your thing and you feel like you want to be less medication or anti-medication, and if you can find a natural modality that works for you, go for it. But for me, my anxiety and depression is so black and white that the idea of doing Reiki sessions or homeopathy or, more natural approaches was like, that is going to take time and that feels so overwhelming to me. Sure, so for me, It was not. I needed something quicker and faster, and I needed a psychiatrist to go along with it that was going to cheer me on along the way.
Sure, absolutely. And I appreciate you shedding light on both views. I totally agree. I'm very holistic in my own journey, but I also, as a practitioner, know that there is a time and a place where medication is needed and is warranted. And that's not a bad thing. Like the whole point of this is like, there's no shame in that. Some people are very much like, no, I don't want to be on a medication for the rest of my life for this. Though, I mean, I wouldn't hope you would need to for the rest of your life, but like, there's no shame if you need to be on one for a year or 2 years and until you feel like you get like at bay with it. But yeah, there are holistic things you can try. You mentioned early on you were doing hormone therapy. Was that like, did that impact you? Like, did that help at all, do you feel?
Because of the state of my chemical imbalance that was already happening, it was not the time for me to be doing any hormonal supplements. Okay, I didn't have anyone in my life to tell me that, but it was not the right time. So my body responded negatively to it.
Sure. And everybody's body is different. So that doesn't surprise me. That, I mean, it might work for somebody and not others. I mean, I know like after having a baby that our hormones can just completely change and that can impact one's mental health. I mean, in my own journey, when I got my hormones in a better place, my anxiety significantly decreased. And so, what I do want to shed light on with that specific topic is like, don't underestimate the power that your hormones can play in your mental health either. But it's not a fix all, but it can definitely be playing a role. So it doesn't hurt to at least get them looked at if you're concerned that like if you're perimenopausal, if you're premenopausal, if you're just had a baby. I mean, like, regardless of where you're at in your journey, like that, the hormones can impact your mental health. I mean, it did for me, but again, everybody's body is different. So that also doesn't hurt to look into that if that's something you're concerned about.
Yes. And I also want to be a voice to men. I'm not a man, but okay, women have hormones. Whoa, yes, we do. But guess what? You can be a man and not have female hormones and still have to navigate brain health struggles. Just because you are a man does not mean you have to outstrong, whatever brain health struggles. Mm-mm. Okay?
Thank you.
Females are not the only people that have brain health issues, struggles, whatever. Episodes. Mm-hmm. Let's call them episodes. People in their 30s, people in their 60s, people in their 80s, 8-year-olds, 5-year-olds. Mm-hmm. You guys, depression and anxiety doesn't only latch onto a certain age group, denomination. It does not matter. It affects everyone and anyone. So I also want to be a voice to any men that listen to this or any females that listen to this that are supporting a friend or a relative or a partner that is dealing with brain health.
Yeah. Yep. I love that.
Going back to the medication thing, I wanted to say one thing too.
Yeah.
There is no shame in being on a brain health medication.
No.
I don't care if you need to be on it for 6 months, for 6 years, or for 60 years. I want you to think about your brain as an organ that changes as you age. Do other parts of our bodies change as we age? Does our heart, do our lungs, do our eyes, do our legs, do our joints, do our muscles? Yes, guess what? Your brain changes too. So the way that my psychiatrist has described it to me is your chemicals in your brain change on a daily basis. Sometimes they need some of this, sometimes they need some of that, and sometimes they need a lot of something, and that's where the medication piece comes in. So we have to start thinking about brain health medications like any other medication we would gift, G-I-F-T, to our body, because it is a gift. And we have to receive it that way, and we have to shout from the rooftops that there is no shame. And you guys, if you are on a brain health medication and you start feeling good, you cannot just stop taking it. There is nothing that will confuse your brain chemistry more than giving it all this medicine and all of a sudden saying, oh, I feel good, I don't need this anymore. You are hurting your healing.
Yeah,
I just can't teach that enough. I just cannot. Yeah. If you are in a position where you feel like you want to try to dial off of your medication, that is great. I encourage you to talk to your med provider and build a solid timeline, calendar, outlined plan to try it in a safe way.
Yeah. Unfortunately, quitting cold turkey can be very, very detrimental to your healing journey. Yeah.
Yes.
I appreciate you shedding light on that as well.
Yeah. I feel like I'm doing more talking than you, but I guess I have a lot to say.
This is why I bring people on. No, it's not about
one thing that really helped me when I was in the weeds, and when I say in the weeds, like I'm in the thick of it, every day is hard. I bought window markers, and I would write affirmations or sentences all over my windows and my mirrors in my house. And when I read these, I'm talking specifically to anyone that is having an up close and personal experience themselves or someone that they're caring for that are in the weeds. And I hope that these help someone. The first one is give yourself the gift of softness. Can you be soft with your anxiety and depression? Can you surrender to it and still do the things that healthy you would do? The next one, let hard just be hard. Do not invite fear in with it. Anxiety and depression is hard. Hard is enough. Let hard just be hard. You don't need to invite fear. Because guess what? Your reality is not your what ifs. Your anxiety and depression will say, what if? Well, what if? Well, what if? What if this? What if this? Make a plan, make a plan, make a plan. Your reality is not your what ifs. You are not alone. You are not alone. Give yourself some credit. Did you get out of bed today? Were you brave enough to eat breakfast even though you had no appetite and looking at food made you want to vomit? Give yourself some freaking credit. You are doing hard things. The last thing is one solid rock at a time. This one I got from my therapist when I was in the weeds. She said, you feel like you're on sinking sand right now. And all I need for you to do is find your next solid rock to stand on throughout your day. Maybe that's getting outside and standing in the sun. Maybe that's getting out of bed. Maybe that's taking a shower. I would carry a rock in my pocket I did that for about a month. And every time I felt that rock in my pocket, it reminded me, you're doing it. One solid rock at a time. That's
Very well said.
Those are the things that I actually still have them on my window. And this week I feel like I'm ready to erase them.
Oh.
Healing has happened. I'm ready to wash my windows, which does not happen. I'm going to wash my windows, and I'm going to write some, or maybe I'll just let them be clean for a while and enjoy that. Because healing has happened in the hard. But you have to be brave. You have to be vulnerable, and you have to be willing to put in the work.
Amen. I love that. So well said. Such great words of wisdom, Kerri.
I credit my therapist. I really do. Have I showed up and have I done the work? Yes, but
I love that. If anybody that's listening to this, just if any of this deeply resonates with you, feel free to reach out to me if you're unsure of what your next step needs to be. If you're like, if this gave you the push that you needed, if this was a nudge to like get going in therapy for yourself, or maybe you're already in therapy, but you need another tool in your toolbox, don't hesitate to DM me. If you have questions specifically about Kerri, you can absolutely reach out to Kerri, but, I'm always open to questions. If anybody wants to talk more about this, or if any of this, like I said, deeply resonated with you, I'm all ears. And I'm so grateful, Kerri, that you felt comfortable. I'm also very grateful that you felt comfortable when we initially scheduled it over the summer. I'm grateful that you felt comfortable to say, you know what, now might not be the right time for me. I thought that took guts, and I respected you for being able to say that. And I very much understood, like, you needed your time. And then I got that nudge this fall. I'm like, I have to have Kerri on. And so I'm really glad that I responded to that nudge, and I'm glad it was divine timing and it worked out for you. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and being so vulnerable, because the right person or persons needed to hear this today, or when they listen to it.
It's been an honor, because when I think of the Kerri, the 2019 Kerri, if I would have had a person who I looked up to as someone as normal, smart, strong, intelligent, healthy, come to me and say, girl, I'm on medication. I have depression. I've had episodes. You're going to be good. You're going to be good. I can't even tell you how much of a hug that would have felt like.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
The biggest cheerleader ever, because I didn't have that person.
Sure.
So maybe I can be that person for other people, and knowing that they're not alone. And It's normal. It's normal to have to ask for help. It's normal to have support. We are human.
Yep. I totally agree. Yeah, I'll put Kerri's Instagram handle, and I don't know if you have Facebook still or not, but I can put her information in the show notes as well. But before we completely wrap up, I do like to end with some rapid fire questions, Kerri. Sure. So my first question for you is there a book that you're currently reading?
Yes, it is a book about empathy, because I am an empath, and it's about like what empathy is and how to protect it.
Love. I am an empath as well, so love that. Okay. What's one thing you can't live without besides a cell phone?
I don't know. That's a hard question. What's one thing I can't live without? Movement in my day.
Love that. I know you said you're going to yoga after this, so
you bet.
Love it. If you're listening to one, what's a current go-to podcast?
I'm in need of a good podcast right now.
Okay. All right. My list is overflowing. So, what is one song that you have to sing along to whenever it comes on? Could
Sweet
be current
Home Alabama.
Yes, love it.
I grew up on it.
That is awesome. And my last question for you is, what's your favorite way to relax after a long day?
Well, currently it is taking 5 milligrams of melatonin an hour before bed and reading a magazine.
Love that.
I have kicked the cell phone before bed habit and turned my phone off at 8 p.m. and it has been a game changer. No more social media before bed.
I can relate. It is a game changer. I replaced it with reading, and I wish I would have done that a long time ago.
Yep.
Totally agree. Love that. Good for you. Good habits in general. That's so, like, habits that you form to support your mental health can be such a game changer. So
yeah,
that's a really good point too.
Thank you.
Love it. Well, Kerri, I'm so appreciative that you agreed to come on today. I have no doubt that your story is going to touch many people, and the people that need to hear it are going to hear it in divine timing. So thank you again for agreeing to this and sharing your story and being vulnerable. And I hope you found it was healing for you as well.
Yes. Thank you for giving voice and opportunity and creating a safe space for this conversation to happen. And I put a universal prayer over our conversations that it will fall into the ears of the people that need to hear it.
Love that. Thank you. All right, guys, until next time, before I do wrap it up, if there's anything that was mentioned today, feel free to DM either of us. And if there is someone in your life that you feel needs to hear this story, please send this to them, share it with them. If it resonated in your own life, take a screenshot, put it in your story, tag me. I would love to hear what takeaways really hit home for you. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening to us. It means so much to me. If there were any aha moments or anything that really resonated with you on today's episode, then please take a minute and share it on your social media and tag me so I can personally thank you. Also, if you could, please rate and review the podcast as it is new, and that really helps to get the word out there more and reach even more listeners. I'll catch you on the next episode.